question and answer session for House District 94. This is how this question and answer session will go. We will basically introduce yourselves for a 2-minute period. Then we will have a series of 5 questions. Each of you will get the same 5 questions. I will put the questions first in alternate order so that you don't have to always be the first one answering a question. It's not a debate. It's simply your perspective on these questions on SC for Ed and education in South Carolina in general. At the very end, I'll let you have another 90 seconds to say anything else that you don't think that we covered in the first 5 questions and introduction, and from there, we'll close it down and publish it. Are we good? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. So.
Oh, and Deidre, don't forget, I will put the 1-minute reminder up, okay, for you guys.
That's right.
Perfect.
So each question, ideally, you will answer in 3 minutes. So when time starts clicking down, Mev will help put a visual reminder up there so that you know when to summarize. We good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. Just because Mr. Guthrie got in first, I'll go ahead and ask you the first question first.
Okay.
Oh, actually, let me go ahead and let you introduce yourself. I apologize. I skipped that part. So go.
All right. Well, my name is Evan Guthrie. I'm a candidate for South Carolina House seat 94, and currently a local attorney and a business owner. So that's kind of my day job, but also serve on the school board for Dorchester 2 for the last 3.5 years. And in that capacity, we've fought as hard as we can for teacher issues and education. So really just the kind of roadblocks we end up with as far as what we're able to do in a district always seems to come from the state level. So that was really my motivation for wanting to run for the state house, is just to be able to be that voice in Columbia for our local school district, and also just be able to speak up for teachers, because really we understand that the issues that you guys are having, and we want to make sure that your voice is heard. And I want to be that representative that's able to listen and actually do something about your issues and make sure that you're represented fully.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gatch, your turn.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Gil Gatch. I'm born and raised here in Summerville, South Carolina. I have been through almost, I won't say all of the schools, but a lot of the schools. I started off at Flowertown. I was a busy bee. Hey, look at me. And then we moved. I went to SES, Summerville Elementary. Then I went to Rawlings and Alston, where I actually had my mother for 6th grade language arts. If you can imagine, that was horrible. I mean, she was great, but she was watching my every move, watching me like a hawk. And then, of course, I went to Summerville High School, played football, and just, not only because I have grown up through Dorchester District 2, our teachers so near and dear to my hearts, and the issues that they face so important to me, but also because my mom, who taught for 37 years in this school system, was nationally board certified, and also my aunt, her sister, was also, she graduated with 36 years in DD2. I get it. I hear what's going on in teachers' hearts and minds, because I've lived with it almost basically my whole life. So that's really important to me. Just like Evan, I'm also an attorney in town. I went to law school up in DC, where I got to work for some really cool organizations. I worked for Senator Scott up there, and I also worked for the Heritage Foundation, where I worked on constitutional issues and public policy. And like I said, I am now an attorney in town, and just have a heart to serve. So if the people of this district want me to represent them and what their issues are, what's on their minds and their hearts, it would be my honor to serve you guys up in Columbia.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, since Evan went first with the introductions, Gil, that means you'll have the first question.
Okay, great.
First question. What is your opinion of the state of public education in South Carolina today?
State of public education in South Carolina today. Well, that's a pretty broad question. I know good and bad things. I think that's I think there's a lot of people who would say that public education has served them well. I know that I'm one of those folks. I think that there are teachers who are invaluable to the lives of students who are now who have grown up, who are now adults. I can't count how many times I've been sitting at a restaurant with my family and a person comes up to my mom and they're like, Miss Gatch, do you remember me? I'm so-and-so. I can't get out. Like, your class changed me. Like, it taught me this, taught me how to read. It taught me that, you know, I could do this, and, you know, it changed my life. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in Dorchester District 2. It happens in South Carolina schools, and that's awesome. But as you know, there are struggles. The struggles that I hear about oftentimes are equitable funding issues, and that really is particular, from what I understand, to DD2. But there's also issues with retirement, as you well know. And there's also issues with pay, trying to keep up with the average. I think that we should break through the ceiling of the average as well. So there's some challenges that South Carolina faces. It doesn't mean that I would want to give it a negative or pejorative term to describe it. But anytime there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. And I think that if I were elected, I would like to be really in the midst and at the ground level of making those opportunities realities for the teachers of South Carolina.
Okay, great. Okay, Mr. Guthrie, same question. What is your opinion of the state of public education in South Carolina today?
Well, my opinion is really it just needs some improvement. So by most metrics on a national level, we rank 49th, 50th. So it's kind of disappointed on those metrics that we rank so on the bottom of those. But at the same time, I'm proud of all the good teachers that we do have and the good education that does get done. And really, I think that the way to improve those metrics is just to put more of a priority on funding and making sure that whatever teacher issues that are standing in the way of making sure that we can rise up those rankings are put in place. And I think that's really having legislators that make public education a priority and making sure that those issues are addressed. And I think that we have to listen to the teachers and make sure, because they're on the front lines and they know what they need to do to make sure that they have the best education for students. And on a local level, I'm proud that our school district ranks in the top 10 in most metrics. But on a state level, I think that there's a lot of things that can be improved to make sure there's equity and equality throughout the state. There's certain school districts that they not only need more funding, but they also need more training and leadership to make sure that as a whole state that we can be on improve on our rankings and make sure that we can rise up and make sure that that it's a priority and that we can do that. So that's really my goal as a state legislator, is to put education on a priority and make sure that it's all the priority for all the legislators.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so because you went last time, so you'll go first this time. Question number 2, what steps would you take to improve public education?
All right, well, number 1 is the funding. So right now, that's a challenge for our district, Dorchester 2. We're the second from the bottom, or bottom in the funding and the most underfunded districts. And really where that comes the most is it's going to be for student-based costs. So right now it's proposed to be about $2,500 per student, but really that's what the state law says it should be is around $3,300. So that's about $600 per student short that we're missing each year, and that's state law. So the state legislators are breaking the law. They're taking money away from schools, and it's kind of surprising each year they have a $2 billion surplus or $1 billion surplus, and that's money that in effect should be going to the schools, and it gets repurposed to other issues and other things. So I want to make sure that school funding, student-based costs, and they throw sort of pennies at us. So this year it was $11, $15 improvement from last year, but it needs to be closer to $100, $150 to make any real difference, and make sure that we're able to do that. The other big thing that really hurts us as a district is the Act 388. So that's something that really it's the property taxpayers, and really it puts the onus on small business owners like myself to make up for what the state mandates that we pay. So it's really making sure that Act 388 is either reduced or eliminated or restructured so that the fair share can be sort of attributed to all the taxpayers and not just the small business owners, the renters, the vehicle taxes, and really it's just making sure that that's really killing us as a school district. So that'd be my two biggest priorities to improve South Carolina schools, is to make sure that we get the proper funding. And really what we're asking for is just basic stuff each year. We can't have the nice stuff in Dorchester too. We just want school resource officers, we want school counselors, and it's a struggle just to do that and pay our teachers. But it'd be nice to have extra funding to pay for reading programs, all the nicer things that can really uplift our schools. So I think that's really the thing, and just do it on a statewide basis.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gatch, same question. What steps would you take to improve public education?
Sure. My audio cut out for a second right when Evan said something about lawmakers breaking the law, but is that what he said? Because I couldn't hear what he said. Did he say that the lawmakers are breaking the law? Is that what you said?
They're
Correct.
not, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my sound cut out. So I agree with what Evan's saying. I do think that we have to increase the funding. That is definitely a no-brainer. We're not going to get those things done without the extra money. Act 388, this is something that I had mentioned when we were interviewing before, the SCEA, when we had that little talk the other day. No one has been able to give me a really great explanation about what the actual shortfalls are. We all know that it doesn't work. We know that the funding formula is imperfect, to put it kindly. But I haven't heard somebody tell me in a succinct way why it's wrong and how it could be changed for us. And since, and I'm sure Evan knows a lot more about this since he's been on the school board like for 4 years, so maybe he can explain that to us. But I know that we have to fix Act 388. That has to be, it probably won't be able to be fixed piece by piece. It's probably going to have to be addressed full scale. So definitely Act 388 has to be addressed. One thing too that I keep hearing often is about the autonomy that the school board has. Apparently they don't have it. Apparently it's something that is, it's not often the case in South Carolina, but the county, the board at the county level has, the Dorchester County has the, pulls the financial strings there. And the school board has to come to them. That's something that I'd like to address as well. And I'd like to understand that more, because it seems like those two things are also connected. But yeah, those three things I think are no-brainers to start with for sure. And then if Evan wants to explain Act 388 and that whole thing, it'd be great. Teach us, man. Teach us how it goes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you're up first because you went last. Third question, if elected, what would you do to address the funding of public education?
To address the funding?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What would you do to address the funding? So the previous question was, what steps would you take to improve public education? And this was, how would you address the funding?
Sure. I think maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm a simple guy. So I think speaking the truth is really a good step in the right direction. One of the things that we all can kind of say, I want to be careful the way I say it, but let's say it this way: we don't think of the word transparency and then directly the next thing that we think of is the State House or government in general, right? We always feel like there's a shroud of mystery cloaking government, and that's not good. That doesn't instill confidence in our constituents. That doesn't instill the encouraging feelings that we want the public to have when they think about those who are representing them and who are making laws and rules that will directly affect them and their children. So I think speaking truth to this issue and others as well would directly start blowing the smoke out of the room a little bit and start simplifying matters. The more we talk about stuff, the harder it is to ignore. It seems to be that there's a lot of people for SC, for Ed, that are passionate about this. I'm sure that so many of them have really great ideas. I would like to use those folks as a resource. I would like to directly talk to those folks, and it could be one-on-one or it can be in other contexts and settings. But yeah, I would love to hear what other people have to say. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. I'd like to think that I'm decently intelligent, but but there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this job on my own. I need to use you guys and others who are so well versed in these areas to really figure out what makes the most sense. And then you said address, how are we going to address that? Well, we just speak about it. We don't shy away. We don't get scared of what it means. Of course, we want to be very kind and professional in the way that we address these issues. And of course, we will do that, but we still need to speak directly to them.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mr. Guthrie, same question. If elected, what would you do to address the funding of public education?
I think really just the way to address it is to make it a priority. So that's gonna be one of my major priorities as a state legislator is education funding. So just getting other state legislators on board with how important it is and educating them. So a lot of times it's relationships you can make and what your priorities are. So you only get so much political capital as a state legislator. And I think that I'm going to use most of my political capital, if I get a chance to serve, is to work on the funding issues and bring those attention to light, just how important it is. And whether it's getting a group like SC for Ed in there, when you guys do your rallies, or just making sure that I can introduce you to more legislators to get on board with different issues. I think really just making it a priority and just making sure that you're being seen, but also see how it affects you guys. So really it's just, I think that SC for Ed is so important because you gave a face to the funding issues. The teachers got up there and said that, hey, this is really affecting us. You have to look at us in our eyes and see that we're real people. This is the real people that you're affecting. And just making sure that just they're a real person, real issues, and getting up there and just making sure it's a priority. So that's my goal as a state legislator, is just to make sure that every single ounce of my strength is towards funding and making sure that your issues are heard.
Okay, thank you. That means we're on to question number 4, and you're first, Mr. Guthrie.
Yeah.
What do you believe is the top issue surrounding public education in South Carolina?
All right, so probably the third issue in a row. We're going to talk about funding here, but again, if it was the number 1, 2, and 3 issues, I think that's really the key issues that we have to hit home about. So I don't want to be too repetitive here, but I think really just hitting at the student-based costs and making sure there's dedicated funds each year that are supposed to go there that just are not there, and then it's showing that how underfunded some of these school districts are, and really just making sure that again, just making sure that the funding issue is taken care of each year. So there's really not too much more I can say. Again, this Act 388 has to be reformed as well. So just making sure that, again, it's this the system, it's meant to save taxpayers, elderly taxpayers, from having to pay for school operating costs. But again, it's a well-meaning tax program, but again, it really puts business owners and other renters as a disadvantaged tax state. So making sure that that Act 388 is solved, the student-based cost is solved, and also fiscal autonomy for Dorchester 2. That's a legislative thing that has to be voted on by local legislators' delegation. So it's making sure that those issues all come together and making sure that local school district, but also statewide, is properly funded.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, same question to you, Mr. Gatch. What do you believe is the top issue surrounding public education in South Carolina?
The top issue. Not going to say funding. Obviously, funding is a big deal, but just for the sake of sanity, I won't say funding. I will say, let's talk about something else that has to do with money, though. How about retirement for teachers? Something that my family, my mom and my aunt as well, they are lucky enough to be under the old system, which works out quite well for them, I would say. And I've heard that system, from what I understand, is not. They're saying that it's not sustainable. So there's a new system that's being touted as the solution that is going to be connected to the stock market. I don't know the right answer, but I know that uncertainty doesn't feel good. Security makes me feel much better. And that's what I'd like to provide for teachers, and when they're thinking about their retirement, is security. Maybe the stock market, maybe that's not a good idea. I'd really like to explore this. I mean, I don't want teachers to be disincentivized to come to South Carolina or stay and retire in South Carolina because of something like a bad, a bad retirement plan. So our teachers here in South Carolina are incredibly talented. They can get jobs making more money other places. That means they could get teaching jobs in other states. They can also just say goodbye to teaching and get higher paying jobs. We don't want them to do that because of something like a retirement plan security issue in their minds, wondering, how am I going to make this work? You know what, I'm just going to try something else because I don't trust where I'm going to be if I retire here. That's got to be fixed. And that's something at the very least we can address. Like we talked about, we need to get first thing up there and start talking about this, because there's other retirement plans that we're locking in. Can teachers be in another one of these that we're locking in? I think that we need to talk about that, because there's so many wonderful teachers who we want to keep here, and we don't want to lose them. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Now that you went last, so you go first this time. All right. Last question. Question number 5.
Yeah.
All right. Considering how well educators continue to provide instruction after coronavirus pandemic canceled state testing and assessments, what are your opinions about accountability measures today?
Well, I'd like to know where it's headed. I mean, are we saying that things are off the table, things are totally changing, or did we press the pause button? I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know, as far as accountability measures go, the way that I understand it is that we test in South Carolina, we test more than is required by the federal government. And that sounds like a good idea at the beginning, like on the surface level stuff. That seems really, really good. But then when we start thinking about how much money is used and allocated towards extra testing, I think a good question just would simply be, at first, before we change anything, are the funds that are being allocated towards those testing measures, are we getting like the bang for the buck? Every dollar spent on an extra test, are we getting a dollar in benefit or results out of that? That's a question that I'd like to know, or I'd like to have answered. But as far as the COVID and the accountability measures, of course, there are lots of different measures that schools and teachers are held accountable to testing the students. That shouldn't end, but we got to get creative. And I'd like to hear what we're actually doing, because I haven't heard the latest on what we're actually planning on doing at the end of this year. But I don't think that we should give up on it. That has to be done, obviously. But maybe a solution in the future would be to reallocate some of the funds that we're spending towards the extra tests that aren't mandated by federal government, and use that for something else, like funding, something that we've been talking about that's so important. So I don't know if that's a bit of a sideways answer, but I think that it makes a little bit of sense. But at the end of the day, I need to find out a lot. Like, maybe you can inform me, or maybe Evan can inform us about what's the plan right now for the accountability measures, since the school year is ending.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Guthrie, last question. Considering how well educators continue to provide instruction after the coronavirus pandemic canceled state testing and assessments, what are your opinions about accountability measures today?
All right. So I think pretty much every single teacher in South Carolina would say that there's way too much testing going on. And that's kind of the refrain I hear from all teachers: too much testing, too much testing. There's certain times where I visit the schools and on things, and guess what they're doing? They're testing. How many weeks? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it just seems like endless testing. And again, like Mr. Gatch said, we're doing too much testing in South Carolina. We're not mandated to do all that testing. We're doing more than mandated by the federal government to receive any federal funds that we're owed as part of our budget. So I think whatever permutation, if there's EOC, Education Oversight Committee, that's still there, if it gets abolished, whatever the new system is as far as accountability and testing, we need to work with them and teachers, because they're the ones on the front lines. They know how much it interferes with the flow of their teaching in their classrooms to have all this testing. They need to find out what accountability measures they want, and they need to be part of this new committee or whatever is the replacement, just so they can see on the front lines, okay, this is what we need, this is what's in place, this is what needs to be reduced. And then I think that if anything, at this point, we need to reduce because it's way too much. And then if it's the teachers speak up in unison and say, it's not enough testing. Some kids are slipping through the cracks. We're not testing them enough. We need to make sure that we see if they're on grade level or not. And that would be a point to revisit. But just from what I'm hearing from the teachers, and I want to make sure they have a voice in all this, is there's way too much testing, and just make sure they're part of the process as much as possible. So I think that's the best way to be inclusive to the teachers and make sure that the students are not over tested. The teachers can actually teach. That's just what I'm hearing, and that's why I want to be in a state legislator, to be able to be in place to be a bridge between whoever makes that decision and speak up for the teachers as the best way I can.
Okay, awesome. You didn't even need your 1 minute sign. All right, so that's all for the formal questions. I will now allow you guys, I'm going to say 2 minutes because Mev has kept us so good on time. 2 minutes to add any other comments. And Mr. Guthrie, since you went last, you can go first this time in closing statements. Lawyers, right?
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate giving me the opportunity to interview us, and just how much we value SC4Ed and kind of the voice that they've given teachers and this whole movement they've started in just 2 years, how much progress you've made. I want to be able to be the state representative in Columbia that can carry on that voice and make sure that everybody else sort of gets on board, just to see how valuable teachers are, how much they do for the students in South Carolina. And again, it's just, I want to be that voice that stands up for teachers, education, public education. And again, that's, if I'm blessed enough by the voters to be in that position, I don't want to let you down. I want you to be in my ear every single day if it needs to be. If I start slipping, speak up, wake me up, and make sure that I'm able to get everybody else on board. But again, I really appreciate the work that you guys do, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gatch, you're up.
Yes, like Mr. Guthrie said, thank you so much for having us and interviewing us. We haven't seen each other, Mr. Guthrie and I. We haven't seen each other since I declared, right? I mean, this is the first time we've actually seen each other. So how you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Good to see you. A long time no see. Yeah, so my whole life, like I said before, it's been in DD2. So I think it means a lot to me. Some people say, you know, public education is, maybe it's not so great. Its results, maybe not so great. Well, I'd like to argue with that a little bit. I think public education is wonderful. I think that I'm a pretty decent piece of fruit out of the public education tree. I'd say that I turned out okay. And I know that lots of other people have come out with being changed forever, not just because of what they learned, but because of the investment that certain teachers have made into these people's lives. My parents, especially my mom and my aunt, they have shown me what it means to foster and create environments that empower and inspire students, that are engaging with students so that they can become lifelong learners, that they can become citizens equipped to tackle the challenges of the 21st century, and to be great citizens here in our community, the small community, and beyond. That is something that I feel like I understand with having the upbringing that I've had. And if I'm lucky to be elected, I will hopefully be a great representation of my mother and other teachers here, and continue to resource you guys to do everything that it is that you guys need to do. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the candidate who is Mr. Know-It-All, but I like to think that I have a great ear. I'm responsive to those who are telling me what they think needs to happen. And I promise you that I will do everything in my power, humanly possible, to be responsive to the things that you guys are working towards. And we'll see how it goes, but I know together we can get some really great results done. Together we can make this thing happen. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have the opportunity.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, gentlemen, this concludes our interview. I appreciate it very much, your time and your energy, and thank you for coming and answering all the questions. And I wish you both the very best of luck.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye-bye. Okay, I think I have, look, Corey left too, so there's just us 3 chickens here. So, oh, I can't hear you. You're muted, Mev. You're muted, babe. You're muted. Mev, you're muted. I can't unmute you, babe.
Oh, you want to end recording?
Oh, I do. Sorry. Thank you.